Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled EM Calls in a Noise Complaint in the Middle of a Hurricane. Background: I live in Atlantic Canada and we were just hit by Hurricane Dorian. Not as bad as the Bahamas, they certainly have it a lot worse than us, but needless to say, power went out in our neighborhood. We have a generator, however, so when the power went off, we just went out and turned it on. Of course, it is a little loud, but we were not going to have it running during the night. Shortly after we turned it on, we received a knock on our door. We were concerned something might have happened to our neighbor, so we opened it. M is mother, EM entitled mom, me mutant experiment 24 aka me. Mother: are you okay? EM:
I'm fine, I cannot get my baby back to sleep.
Me: the wind is kind of loud, maybe bring her to the basement. EM:
She slept through worse weather, the problem is your generator out back.
Me: oh, sorry about that, we don't want to lose the dog food we have in the freezer, so we turned it on. EM:
Turn it off.
What?
Turn off your generator, you're being extremely rude.
No, it's really not that loud compared to the wind, and we have raw dog food in our freezer.
Fine.
And with that, the EM ran back to her house. We thought that would be the end of it, but of course that would be a boring story. About 4 hours later, the eye of the storm was passing over us. We used this time to go out and refill the generator. As my brother turned it off, there was another knock at the door. I thought it would be the neighbor again, but instead it was a police officer. He had received a report that we were purposely banging the walls and playing music so loud that the neighbor could hear it through walls. We live in a duplex. Of course, we explained it to the officer, the encounter with EM early through the storm, and apologized to him. He was thankfully cool and explained that even during such a hurricane, they were required to respond to even minor things. Unfortunately, by the time we resolved the issue with the officer, the eye had passed and the winds had picked up again. The main street of our side street was closed again due to the high winds and risk of flooding/waves. The officer was advised to stay on our side street, so we invited him in for some coffee and to play some cards, but not before he went to our neighbor and gave them a chewing out. We were going to offer extension cables to our neighbors to help keep their freezers and fridges running, but after that encounter with the neighbor, we decided instead to use the second line we had for our television and game console instead. Just wanted a quick update to inform everyone that today I returned home to my neighbor carrying out 3 or 4 Tupperware containers to her green bin. She just dropped them in without opening them. And guys, I'm curious, did you ever experience a hurricane? Obviously, since I live in Europe, hurricanes are not that frequent, but I would love to know about your experiences with them in the comments. By the way, one thing, and maybe that makes me weird, I'm not sure, but just so you know, when I am recording, I always have a YouTube playlist with essentially raindrop sounds in the back, and for some reason that makes me feel really relaxed. Is the sound of rain relaxing for anybody else, or am I alone here? Either way, let's continue with the stories. And the next one is titled Crazy Cat Lady Neighbor. Back in my apartment dwelling days, I had a neighbor with several cats who she let roam. For whatever reason, her cats and whatever additional friends they invited tended to congregate under my bedroom window, fighting, screwing and whatever cats like to do all night. It being summertime, I liked sleeping with my window open and did not appreciate the serenade. I had asked her a few times about keeping them in at night, but her little darlings just love being outside and it would be cruel to keep them in. It being summertime, I had enjoyed another of my favorite pastimes, fishing. A day at the lake had yielded a nice batch of trout, and while cleaning them, I hatched my revenge. I saved all the blood and guts and then poured/lightly buried them in the bark dust under her bedroom window. The party found a new location with even more participants and her outdoor cats quickly moved inside. And I would say that's a rather cruel revenge considering this is from Petty Revenge. Either way, let's continue with the next one. And the next one is titled, "Don't Sue, we will let you come into our property to fix your sewer line." The house I grew up in was built on the side of a hill, great views, but the geography posed some challenges for the city utilities, sewage in particular. Their solution was to put all the houses on the hill in what was called a shared line. Essentially, one big pipe ran through all of our backyards just below the houses' basements. Effluent would flow out from the houses into the shared pipe and then down the hill to the city sewer line by the bottommost house. When we moved in, we were at the highest point that it was possible to build on and still be part of that shared sewer line. But a few years later, someone bought a lot just over the crest of the hill and linked up with ours without being part of the planned community that had an HOA that took care of the sewer line, among other things. And in fact, they did so without the HOA's approval. And so for the next 2 decades, my family would be the subject of near constant harassment over the state of the sewer. Their end of the line was lower than ours by just enough that it would stop flowing and clog, often backing up into their basement bathroom and shower. They would accuse us of diverting our effluent to their line because I guess we were some kind of plumbing wizards. Now, the reason nobody built a house on that part of the hill during the original development was that the soil was unstable, something hydrology related, and sure enough, over the years that house would occasionally separate from the hill and slide down a couple of inches. But our neighbors had connections in the code enforcement agency, so the place never got condemned like it should be. They just had to shore it up and reconnect all the utilities. The thing is, the further down the house moved, the steeper the negative incline was from their sewer connection to our junction box, making the clogs and backups even worse. At one point it got so bad that their sewer barely flowed. Some days it got completely clogged. Somehow this was our fault. They spent the next year calling us every time they tried to flush a toilet and crap came out in their downstairs shower. They called a plumber who said they had to redo their part of the shared line, and to do it they would have to bust through our 2-story masonry wall so they could get a backhoe onto our property and dig out the line. Of course we had issues with this. We said no, you will not come onto our property and tear it up with a big ass piece of construction equipment, hire human laborers or something. But instead they hired lawyers who started slinging paper around. According to them, we were in violation of state law that specifically gave an implied easement granting a homeowner access through another's property to maintain their own. So we hired lawyers of our own who said that we basically had a choice. We could win the case but pay a ton of money or just let it happen. Either way, we would be screwed. But they pointed out one important fact: that 20-year-old masonry wall was not in the greatest of shape anyway, so... A few months later we presented them with a bill for $75,000 for the rebuilding of the wall, installation of a new set of stairs, replacement of the entire wrought iron fence that had separated the 2 properties, resodding, replacement of ornamental plants and shrubs, and some minor repairs to our sewer, which they had borked up while relaying their pipes. I am not a general contractor, but my guess is that they could have hired pick and shovel labor to dig out that pipe and replace it with a new one for a fraction of that price, but no, they had to have a giant caterpillar tread machine do it. They balked, but then we handed them a Xerox copy of the letter that their lawyers had sent us with pursuant to paragraph blah 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 of the common code of blah blah blah, citing the next paragraph, which stated that the person using the easement was 100% responsible for any damage that might be caused. They still balked, but my parents put a lien on their property that stayed there to the day they tried to sell, at which point they had to pay up or the purchaser's creditors would not underwrite a mortgage. I think they had to pay interest too, but I am not 100% sure about that. Too long didn't read for the people who did not understand the story. Neighbors built their house to connect to our shared sewer line, house sagged down the hill, sewer broke, house filled with crap. They hired lawyers to force my dad to let them destroy our wall and backyard while repairing their sewer. We presented them with a bill for $75,000 to fix our yard. Got a brand new masonry wall essentially for free. And damn guys, I gotta say that was a pretty genius pro-revenge story, but it was a lot to take in. I might just have to read the story again to fully appreciate it. That's how I feel about some longer stories we read, by the way. And in addition, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you would love to help me out. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled The Litigating Neighbors. My family has had a run of bad luck this year. We had a saying last year, it will be better in 2015. Well, early in the winter we were greeted with a call of,
Did you know the marina's on fire?
No, we did not know that. It is our marina, by the way. My mother was in denial. We had gotten this call a few times because the fire trucks fill up by the marina sometimes, and she figured it was just that. I did not want to counter that the ice was over 10 inches thick at least. I just hoped it was a small fire, but it was not. All that was left of the building was a tiny metal frame on one end. For a bit it seemed like we could twist this fire into a good thing. That building was crap and we had never been able to afford to bulldoze it. It happened in winter when we never make any money anyway. If there was a time for a fire to happen, winter was a good time. The insurance called it a total loss, so anything we salvaged did not count against us for payout, but we were able to salvage things. A brief rumor started that it was arson started by us. I might do a post on who started that rumor and why it died so quickly, but it was going good. Then the lawsuit came in. We'd had problems with these people before, but a lawsuit felt a bit over the level of the nastiness they were capable of usually. They were suing us for harassment over the other issues, destruction of family heirlooms, it was a tree, a baby tree, trespassing on property legally declared as ours, and other property related stuff. We countersued on the not ridiculous stuff. So an important thing to know about this area is that the property lines are effed. When my family got the marina, we were sorting out the property lines with 4 different entities. The parcels were in bizarre places. One was in the middle of the building, surrounded by another parcel. The reason for this is because we are on the edge of 2 counties who both tried to determine the property lines, and they did so by markers that don't exist anymore or are now underwater as the lake levels rise every year. Markers literally in the original property lines are the old oak tree. We did find that one, it is a stump. They were the only people who refused to settle. We had to call in surveyors. Our surveyor gave us 10 feet of land. They did not like that, so they called in a surveyor. Their surveyor gave us another 30 feet. Oh yes, we enjoyed that, but on their lawsuit they tried to go back to the original agreement before any of the surveyors. They had less than a stable case. We took photos of the property line from the water and lined it up with old photos. We got a new survey done after we heard that they had tried to trick the system by giving a surveyor the property line and getting him to sign off of it. We used the same company they did. The surveyor gave us even more property. They are not pleasant people to deal with. We had kept this really quiet, taken the high road. However, they shot themselves in the foot. As expected, they put up orange plastic fence around their supposed property line, which their lawyer told them to take down, and my uncle did rip down in front of them, but it was too late. One of the gossips of the lake asked us what was going on, and we were kinda, don't spread this around, but... Knowing that he would spread it around, he did. The whole lake knew that these people were suing us, the people who just had a catastrophic fire take our livelihoods. Oh, did it get nasty. We had people pouring in, sneaking gossip to help our case. They had a history of doing this. We were told to get a look at this legal document, and that. People with motorcycles offered to drive by multiple times at inconvenient hours, which we explicitly condemned while looking pleased with the idea. Because these people were just being so stupid, I was expecting them to be stubborn through arbitration and shoot themselves in the foot during the court case, and thus, according to state law, pay all our legal fees. They did actually give in at arbitration. We got the property. They brought in 3 lawyers from a nearby large city. We had 1 local lawyer. They then fenced in their tiny, hard-lost property with their lawyer watching the whole time. Someone dropped by to let us know their fence was not up to county codes. If we report it, they would have to rebuild it. We have been a little busy, but I think summer, in the middle of their busy season, is the best time to do that anyway. Edit, some things we are not entirely sure what prompted the neighbors to sue us, but the biggest reason we think is that they knew we were struggling financially and that we just got a whole bunch of money plopped into our lap after the fire. After all, they were not asking for just land, but money from us too. The fire was probably caused by mice nesting in some electrical wires. We know what wall it started on, and there were some freezers on that wall that kicked on and off all the time. Only thing flammable on that wall, I have pictures of the remains of the building, and those freezers are just gone. Everything in that entire area was obliterated. We are pretty well liked around the lake, and the fact that they decided to sue us after the fire was not gone unnoticed, so it is getting out, as I pointed out several times, would send the neighborhood friendly mob out if we could get spread the word in a way that did not trace back so clearly to us. Like explicitly asking the source not to spread it around. They would not have sued us without the fire, and the fire made the neighborhood's reaction more extreme. And guys, I hope you don't mind, as a little bonus we will read an I don't work here lady story posted on r/ripestories by user Stacy Rose, and it is titled Gave a Crazy Woman a Taste of Her Own Medicine. So I headed to Walmart to pick up groceries and more cat food for my girls, and figured that I would look around and see if there's anything else I might want while there. Walmart does not enforce the mask policy anymore, because I guess from what I was told, it violates some kind of HIPPA law. I'm not sure what that means, but if any of you know, please let me know. And yes, please let me know too, because that sounds absolutely stupid if it is true. I have asthma and it is hard for me to breathe when I wear my mask, but I still wear it to remain safe. Other stores in the area are not allowing customers in unless they are wearing masks, so I am not taking any chances of getting kicked out of those stores, and besides that, I want to remain virus free. While in Walmart, I just turned down an aisle that holds the canned goods and saw this crazy woman yelling at another customer about how this said customer was not helping her find some kind of item in the store, and saying things like she was gonna make sure she gets that customer fired. The crazy woman was not wearing a mask, and to top it off, she was not going in the right direction. The aisles have arrows showing you what direction to go in to keep the traffic flowing, plus there are marks on the floor indicating how far apart you should be from other customers. I saw the other customer constantly tell this crazy woman that they did not work there and that they did not know where that item was. This crazy woman was not having any of it and was screaming loudly about getting this customer fired and all that jazz that entitled people like to yell to get their own way. I decided it was time to give this crazy woman a taste of her own medicine, so I hatched my small plan. I pushed my cart up to this woman, and even though I was not 6 feet apart, I tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Ma'am, could you tell me where to find the cat food?" Even though I already knew where it was, I wanted to give that other customer an escape and give this crazy woman a taste of her own medicine. She turned around, looked at me and huffed, and then said,
How the hell should I know?
So I looked at her and said, "Well, you work here, so don't you think you should know?" And she lost it and started screaming about how stupid I was and how she does not work there, yada yada yada. I just looked at her and said, "Well, isn't that what she said to you? Yet you seem to think that she works here when she's clearly just another customer like me, and if you really don't work here, why are you being rude to other customers and possibly employees? Don't you think you should treat others the way you want to be treated?" She just looked at me and huffed again. The other customers nodded at me and escaped while I had the crazy woman's attention. I just stood there for a minute or two and said, "I guess I'm gonna have to get your manager and get you fired now, aren't I?" And the crazy woman lost it again and started screaming at me. She was waving her arms around and throwing a full-on tantrum. While screaming at me, she called me some pretty colorful names that are not something I want to repeat. I just stood there, crossed my arms, stared at her and said, "Are you done yet?" And she stopped screaming and said loudly,
What?
And I just repeated myself saying, "Are you done yet?" She looked puzzled and then said,
What are you talking about?
And I smiled and said, "Are you done acting like a spoiled brat? I've never seen a grown adult acting like a 3-year-old before. It is kind of amusing." But if you're not gonna show me where the cat food is, I think I will just do the adult thing and find it myself. And she just stopped and stared at me, and then she said,
"You're crazy."
And I laughed and said, "That is coming from the crazy woman acting like a 3-year-old yelling at people she does not know. I think you need help, and I don't mean the kind of help you were demanding from that other customer. Oh, and before you start that colorful language, let me give a word of advice. If you see someone and you're not sure if they are an employee or not, simply ask, 'Do you work here?' And if they say no, then continue on your way and try to find an actual employee, and while talking to the employees, treat them with respect. Do not yell at them or belittle them. They are working so we can all get our much needed groceries and supplies, and they do not have to put up with attitude from entitled people like yourself. Now I am leaving. Have a nice day." I cheerfully waved at her while I left the aisle, leaving her standing there kind of shocked. When I got to the cat food aisle, I saw that other customer and they nodded at me and said, "Hey, thanks for doing what you did back there." I smiled and said, "Not a problem. Glad I was able to give you a way out and leave that crazy scene. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, but when you give them a taste of their own medicine, they don't like it that much." And I laughed. The other customer laughed too and said, "Yeah, I saw that. By the way, I found an employee and told them about that woman. They were headed to that aisle to sort her out. I was worried you would still be there, but glad to see you are okay." I smiled at them and said, "Thanks. Oh, I just want to say I really love your Pikachu mask. Have a wonderful day and hopefully you don't have to deal with any more crazy people." I grabbed the cat food I needed and started to head out of the aisle when the other customer thanked me and told me that they liked my cat mask I was wearing. We parted ways and continued our shopping. I did not see that crazy woman when I left the store, but I heard more about her by the door greeter. The door greeter told me about how the manager had to get someone to kick that woman out of the store because she was screaming about 2 employees who ganged up on her and treated her so badly. I laughed and said, "Yeah, she was crazy. She was yelling at other customers when I saw her, so I started asking her to help me find items and then threatened to get her fired." The door greeter laughed and said, "I had a feeling it was you she was talking about," and continued laughing as I left the store. This is kind of a I don't work here lady and entitled people story, but I will put it under I don't work here lady flair since I cannot use 2 flares. I hope you all are staying safe out there and are not dealing with crazy people. Sorry if my formatting is not the greatest, been stressed lately and worried about my dad who is still in the hospital, but he's getting better and getting the help he needs. Well, Stacy, I think I can speak on behalf of the community and say that we are very glad to hear that he's getting better, but of course he will still be in our prayers. Wish you the best. And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.